Outgoing McLaren driver Daniel Ricciardo says finding the right balance will be crucial in following McLaren's decision to replace Ricciardo with the 2021 Formula 2 champion Oscar Piastri for 2023. And with few other options, Ricciardo confirmed his retirement from the grid during the Japanese Grand Prix a month ago. Ricciardo has stated repeatedly his quest to secure a Formula 1 reserve role in 2023 that could propel him back onto the grid in 2024. His desire is to return to F1 in 2024 and hopes to find a reserve role for next season that will keep him involved in the championship. He has yet to sign or agree to a contract with any team, with Mercedes and Red Bull being the most heavily rumoured possibilities. The 33-year-old has also expressed a desire to take a break from F1 in order to rejuvenate himself after a largely painful 2 seasons at McLaren, and is looking for a reserve role that allows him the right combination of time in a car or simulator, involvement with a team, and space away from F1. You struck the right word with balance, because it's obviously something that I also want to get enough time to myself, Ricciardo said when asked by the media if finding a balance was important to his 2023 decision. And it's even that, and especially with next year with 24 races, we actually don't get that much time to train on a physical side, so even things like that. If I got more time to myself, I'm sure I can get into better shape. Not that it's something that's held me back, but just in terms of perfecting some things. It's even having time off to work on myself. It's not just to go and have a holiday or something. Ricciardo is also looking for a role that will allow him to stay sharp and time on the simulator to keep his eye in. This would not be Ricciardo's first stint as a reserve driver in F1, as he was Toro Rosso's reserve driver in 2011, before making his race debut with HRT mid-season, and then racing for Toro Rosso in 2012. However, before joining HRT after the British Grand Prix, Ricciardo drove in every single FP1 session for Toro Rosso. Ricciardo believes that any reserve role in 2023 would be very different, and he agrees with the media's assessment that his status as an 8-time Grand Prix winner places him in a unique position compared to most third drivers. Fortunately, I feel like I've done enough to make this case a little unique, and cater for it in a way. Obviously, it has to work on both sides, but it has to sit well with me. It's why I don't want to just jump on the grid again next year. I don't want to just jump into something. I want to take this opportunity to make sure I get enough time for myself to feel the way I need to feel about the sport again. Ricciardo would without a doubt enjoy some time behind the wheel of an F1 car next year as part of any reserve deal, as few things can provide the physical training that a modern F1 car can. The truth is, there is nothing like car fitness at this level. The forces you go through in an F1 car, you can't simulate it. I can do a ton of neck training and all that to stay sharp, but you need to get behind the wheel just to put your body through it. So from that point of view, it's one thing, and just to show some speed. It would be good to get an opportunity. However that looks, I'm not sure. I would like to drive next year. Ricciardo has expressed little interest in switching to another racing category full time, but he hasn't ruled out the possibility of making a one-off appearance in other series to stay sharp. I guess I need to wait and see where I land next year. Then it comes to a question of what I'm allowed to do. But ultimately, if I feel like doing a one-off will benefit me and keep me sharp, then it's something I will potentially look into. I'm kind of like, F1 is so different from a touring car. I don't know if it would distance me from F1 more. That's what I would need to work out though. I don't want to say no yet to anything, but ideally I get some days in an F1 car as opposed to getting a seat somewhere else. Since his departure from McLaren was confirmed, Ricciardo has been linked with potential reserve roles at Red Bull and Mercedes, but he has yet to make any formal announcement about his 2023 plans. Looking ahead to next season, there are several reasons why Ricciardo will consider joining as a team reserve driver. Most importantly, it would allow the Australian to stay connected in the paddock and stay in the loop, which will be critical as he positions himself for the future. Furthermore, a year as reserve will keep Ricciardo sharp and provide him with experience with the 2023 cars. This will come in handy if he decides to return in 2024. Mercedes now has a vacancy in its reserve driver position following the departure of Stoffel Vandoorne to Aston Martin. While the possibility of Ricciardo joining Mercedes is still speculative, the stars appear to be aligning. Ricciardo is clearly overqualified for the reserve driver position, so it appears likely that Mercedes will be interested in bringing a driver of his caliber and experience to the team's roster. Given that Hamilton has already stated his intentions to extend his contract, it would be a stretch to suggest that Ricciardo has a chance of joining Mercedes in 2024. Mercedes team principal Toto Wolff responded to speculation linking Ricciardo to Mercedes. I think Daniel is speaking to a few teams about a potential role, also Red Bull. For us, we very much like him. He's a great character, but we're not in a position yet to who is going to be our third driver. Nonetheless, Wolff stated that Ricciardo's personality and F1 experience would be extremely beneficial to any team that worked with him next year. But I don't want to put any rumours out there because we haven't decided, he added. Red Bull is also in discussions with Daniel Ricciardo about a possible return to the Milton Keynes team. Backed by Red Bull, Ricciardo made his F1 debut in 2011 with HRT before going on to race for Toro Rosso and then Red Bull Racing. Ricciardo left the Milton Keynes squad at the end of 2018 after winning 7 races and finishing 3rd in the overall standings twice. That, it has been suggested, was the start of his long goodbye to the Formula 1 grid. But that doesn't mean Ricciardo's F1 story is done, and it appears that, at least according to Ted Kravitz, he may return to Red Bull. I've got some good news for Daniel Ricciardo fans, the Sky Sports F1 presenter revealed in October. He might not have a race drive for next year, but I do understand he has closed out a reserve driver drive next year. So he told us on Thursday he will be around and about the F1 paddock next year. We thought Mercedes because they now have a vacancy given that Nick de Vries, their reserve driver, is going to AlphaTauri. I'm told it's not Mercedes, so that only leaves Red Bull, the only 2 teams who have a reserve driver on hand at every race. Ricciardo, on the other hand, has denied this, saying when asked if he had a reserve driver role lined up for next season, that he did not. For now, everything's just rumours. Am I talking? Yes, but there's no pen on paper or anything like that. Naturally, not everyone is so optimistic about Ricciardo's future. Many argue that a year away from the sport will only help him fall behind the competition, as prospective teams' memories are notoriously short. One could argue that this is the end of the road for our favourite Aussie driver, and that he will be relegated to the reserve driver role for the foreseeable future, or that he will have to drop down to a lower category like IndyCar if he still wants to compete. Martin Brundle has questioned Daniel Ricciardo's decision to pursue a reserve driver role for next season. Instead of testing F1 cars, Brundle advised Ricciardo to compete in other motorsport series and win races. He's looking for a reserve and he's got to do what feels right for him. I think if he's fallen out of love with F1 a little bit, what you get tired of is the training, the travelling, the technical debriefs and the media work. And if you're going to be a tester, reserve driver, you still have to do all of that and you don't get to drive the car. I'd have thought he'd be best winning Le Mans or something like that. What are your thoughts on Daniel Ricciardo's future in Formula 1? Do you believe the Australian's year off will be the final nail in the coffin? What about spending a year in a different racing series such as IndyCar? Would that help him stay in the game? Finally, do you think he'll be with Red Bull or Mercedes in 2023? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below, and if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, subscribe, and click that bell icon to receive notifications of future uploads.